Okay, so we have Coach Patrick Rawle with us here from Purdue University Fort Wayne in the Horizon League Conference. He joins us today on this Monday of this week, but we're super excited to have him on. He's new to his role here at Purdue University Fort Wayne, so excited to hear what he has going on and some of the key pieces he's brought with him from Wright State as well. So, Coach, if you wouldn't mind, please go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about how you got to the role you're currently in and some of those developmental steps along the way for you.
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you for letting me have this opportunity. I guess I started kind of really getting interested in strength and conditioning probably back in high school. I had a really good coach, came in late in my senior year of high school, and he kind of let me help out around the weight room. I'd always enjoyed lifting, so I was in there a lot already, and he definitely let me kind of start help coach and potentially write some not so great at the time workouts, but it was a learning process. So that was kind of where I first got my first taste of strength and conditioning, but then I kind of just let that side of things sit on the back burner, and I kind of focused on my own lifting for a while as a competitive Olympic weightlifter for a bit. And it wasn't until my junior year of undergrad that I really decided, oh, wow, this could actually be a pretty cool profession. And so I started interning at my my alma mater, Muhlenberg College, so a tiny D3 school in Allentown, Pennsylvania. It's a D3, so there were a lot of teams and not a whole lot of staff. So the nice thing about that was it gave me a lot of opportunity to work with multiple different teams that weren't necessarily getting as much attention from the head coach. So I also got a lot of leeway with what I could do with them. So for a young guy who didn't have too much experience, that might have not been the best, but it definitely gave me. It was a good learning experience. I kind of stuck to what I know or what I knew then, and now that I've been in the field for a little bit longer, it's definitely, looking back on it, I could definitely see what I need to improve on. But it was definitely better than nothing for those kids, and it was a good kind of experience for me just to see what strength and conditioning entailed. And then so after that, I took an internship with Cam Davidson at Penn State. So coming out of undergrad, I thought I knew a lot more than I did. And I think you mentioned previously before we started this recording about like something that kind of really changed my mindset. And he basically one time, I forget exactly what happened, but he wasn't happy with me, and I guess I was being a little pouty about it. And he basically told me to go home, and if you don't show up tomorrow, think long and hard about how bad you want to be in this field. And I did show up the next day, but it was just kind of that kick in the butt that I really needed to kind of to realize that I wasn't as high profile as I thought I was. So and I definitely had interns come through my program that needed it as well. And it was just that kind of that wake-up call that I really needed. And obviously we hear this a lot in this profession: the more we learn, the less we know. And that was, I guess, what really kind of triggered that in me and figuring that out. So I really enjoyed that. I got to work with Penn State volleyball in the early 2014, which that was kind of the height of when they were really, really good. And not that they aren't now, but that was their, I think, back-to-back championships. So it was really cool to be able to work with that program. But after that, I took a little bit of a gap year. I worked at I interned at a private facility before going to, and then also at a high school for a bit. I worked for a high school before I moved back home to go to grad school. I kind of did my own grad school / made my own graduate assistant position. I did grad school on my own, so kind of a non-traditional route. I guess it gives all the people that don't go immediately into a GA spot a little bit of hope to know that you can do the not the traditional internship GA full time. It can work in other ways. But so for a year, I went to McDaniel College for my undergrad, and then actually for a year and a half, I should say. And then the last semester, I took an internship at UCF, which counted as class credit for my grad school program. And so I guess that's what I consider my self-made graduate assistant position. So I spent the spring semester of 2017 down in Florida, learned a lot there. It was nice just because also Coach Burleson, who was working with baseball at the time, he was also at Penn State when I was there, so it was kind of nice to be back and under his wing. He was a pretty good mentor for me and has helped me a lot in this field. So I got to work with him twice, which I am very, very grateful for. And then, so once I finished that internship position, I took basically a paid internship at Embry-Riddle. I didn't stay there too long because, full-time position at Wright State kind of opened up, and I was fortunate enough to land that. So then I spent 4 years at Wright State. I was working with women's basketball, men's and women's soccer, and then track and field. And then in the beginning, they have since cut the programs, but I worked with swim and dive and men's and women's tennis. So got a nice wide variety of sports there, kind of being in the Horizon League, a small mid-major. The staff isn't very numerous, so that gave me a good opportunity to kind of expand the teams that I work with and kind of my mindset with how to train a variety of different sports. And then just recently, this past June, I took the head position here at Purdue Fort Wayne. So I'm kind of getting my feet wet with the head strength and conditioning role. It's definitely been an eye-opening experience, but it's been a good one. So here I work with a lot of teams: men's basketball, women's basketball, men's and women's volleyball. Let's see, men's and women's golf, and baseball. So those are my teams here, and we're definitely hitting the ground running, and it's been a lot of fun so far.
Yeah, absolutely. What a journey along the way. I mean, obviously you've been numerous different institutions. You've been, aside from tactical and maybe commercial, you obviously hit all the big ones, maybe pro as well, but you've got collegiate, you've got high school in there, private facilities. So you've kind of seen all different sides of strength and conditioning. And I think while those experiences, sometimes you either fall haphazardly towards those, or it's just an opportunity that comes up at the time. You think, I'll give it a shot and see what it's like. It's only a couple of years down the line when you reflect, think, even though that wasn't a good fit for me, I at least found value in it, to find out that it wasn't the right fit for me potentially, or, maybe it was the right fit, and that it was the thing that changed your mindset on that as well. But yeah, some gold in there, especially your self-made GA position. I think more and more when I'm speaking to young coaches who are struggling, as many do, to make that step into a GA position because of the competitive nature of getting those roles, or making the step into an assistant position. There are more ways to do it than one, like you say, than that kind of traditional ladder approach. So it just takes, trying to find the opportunities, or if, a door isn't there to knock on, create a door for you to walk through. But yeah, that's a storied journey, and obviously it's brought you to a great position where you are right now, at Purdue University Fort Wayne, which is great. So specifically with you guys at your institution, how will young intern coaches be integrated into your program, and what kinds of responsibilities are they going to have when they come and work with you guys?
Well, we're a small staff. It's myself and a GA. So we need help. And, if an intern's willing and able to kind of dive right in, we're going to give our interns as much, responsibility as they can handle. Obviously within reason, and as long as they're kind of being responsible about it, we might even let them run a team. I've done that. I did that at Wright State. Well, I was there, but, they were able to kind of have some dictatorial, ability over that team, and kind of have some input there. So I think that it's important to be able to, if you can come out of an internship and say, I've coached a team before, then I think either getting a GA or maybe a more high profile internship at a bigger school, people are going to look pretty favorably upon that. It's definitely one of the experiences at UCF. Coach Burleson allowed me to program and train women's golf on my own. So I think that was something I found really valuable, and he trusted me to be able to do that. And so I kind of want to pass that experience on to anybody that comes and works for me. So I want them to hopefully be able to dive right in. The beginning of our internship is essentially the first 2 weeks. we're teaching them kind of how we run things and how we coach. So our first two internship kind of meetings, we talk about kind of the big three lifts. So, deadlift, bench, and squat. And then the second one, we kind of go over the clean and jerk and snatch. So we just hopefully give our internships an arsenal of cues and possible corrections so that they can go in and potentially start coaching after that. So we kind of get them set up in the first 2 weeks, and after that we focus a little bit more on program design for the main part of our internship, and I guess we'll talk about that in a bit here. But we want our internships or our interns to be as hands-on as possible, and kind of dive in as deep as they feel comfortable diving in to our internship and to our program.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I think that kind of harks back to what your experience was, as you alluded to at the start, being in high school and obviously at UCF as well, as you mentioned. There are so many opportunities, especially actually in these smaller school programs, or potentially even in Division 2 and Division 3 programs, where the funding might not necessarily be there to have a large number of staff to deal with the sports they have. And while for the full-time staff there, that can be burdensome and a tough position to be in sometimes, for a young coach who's developing, just like you had the experience, you get those opportunities to be able to have a seat at the table and actually program and coach and be involved in decision making and meetings with sport coaches and things like that. So I think that's awesome. And in terms of hiring young coaches to entry level positions, of course you're going to look for someone who's actually truly had coaching experience, because it's only when you have that you understand that while the theory of training and sports performance enhancement may be solid in your mind, it's only when you try to apply it that you realize logistically this is not going to work.
Right.
So
exactly.
I need to change what I'm doing. I need to consider the context of coaching a bit more. And so having those experiences early on when you're a younger coach as an intern and you have a mentor there to help point those things out, that's awesome. That's awesome. So it's really cool I think it's cool for you that you've come a full circle now. You're 180, because you're on the other side of the coin, asking a younger coach, say, hey, take the reins on this, run with it. Let's see how you do, and provide a kind of safe environment to learn. So that's great. That's really good.
One of the big things that Coach Burleson told me was pass it forward. So when he helped me get positioned, so I'm trying to do that, and it's definitely cool to be able to see these guys grow up and girls grow up and find their own way in the field.
Absolutely. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. So you talked already about, in those first couple of weeks, you're hitting those big three lifts and then the clean and jerk and snatch. You're giving them cueing vocabulary to give them confidence in order to become part of the staff as soon as possible. And so specifically as it pertains to your coach development, developing them even more than just how to teach lifts and how to cue, can you talk a little bit about your curriculum and what kinds of value a young coach who might come to Purdue University Fort Wayne might gain?
Sure. So I think every new person in this field, the biggest thing they're worried about is programming. They don't really get the experience of kind of having to manage coaches and athletes until they're actually a full-time coach, because if you're an intern, you don't have to deal with that side of things. So the main focus, I think, and I know I was this way, was my programming, whether it was good enough or what needed to be fixed, et cetera, et cetera. So we spend the majority of our internship kind of preparing our interns for the main kind of capstone project, which is a program creation kind of project. We just basically, it's a 2-month program, just trying to basically transition from one phase of their choosing to another. And then obviously if they want to go above and beyond, we can let them go do an entire year program. But we only require that 2-month kind of 2-block program. And this kind of goes back to our internship is what our athletes may, or not our athletes, our interns make of it. So if you want to be hands-on and if you want to be essentially treated as a full-time member of the staff, we're more than happy to treat you that way. If you want to sit back and just watch, while it might not be ideal, You might not be getting a recommendation if you just sit there, but like, it is what you make of it. And we want to let our interns kind of go as far as we can or as they can in the program. So to that, we spend a lot of time on exercise selection, and different things like program design, periodization. We spend a decent chunk of time on speed and agility, since I think that often gets overlooked in terms of the pure kind of resistance training aspect of things. So we try to spend the bulk of our program, our internship curriculum program, to get them ready to kind of create that program. And then we have a few other things. We talked briefly about nutrition. I'm not a nutritionist, so I don't want to go too in depth and out of the scope of my practice. But oftentimes at smaller schools, like here, you don't have a nutritionist, so you have to have some sort of background to at least guide athletes in the right way. And then once it goes beyond that, obviously talk to somebody who knows a little bit more about things than you do. But it's important to know a little bit about it so that athletes have at least some sort of resource to fall back on if they need it. And then obviously we're talking about drugs and alcohol and how that would affect training and stuff like that, because while we like to think it isn't, it is college, and those are things that athletes do come across and have to deal with. So and then we also do a professional development thing at the end. It's, I should say, last but not least, professional development. A lot of people that come into programs don't really know how to do an interview. Sometimes I know colleges have professional development kind of courses, but strength conditioning is a whole different beast. And a normal kind of job interview course is not really going to help you a whole lot in the strength and conditioning interview process. So we try to kind of get them acquainted with the ins and outs of how to behave during an interview, follow-up emails, what to have in your portfolio, and various things like that, so that they are able to kind of successfully navigate that when they come across it, once they end their stint here at Purdue Fort Wayne. So that's kind of our curriculum. We also have a few projects kind of sprinkled in there. So we have a presentation to kind of get them used to presenting, say if they were lucky enough to find a spot at a local conference or something, they kind of have an idea of how to do that. They have to dress professionally, et cetera, et cetera. And then they have to kind of find peer-reviewed articles throughout the basically each week that they have to discuss, and basically helping them extract valuable information from scientific literature to apply it to the field, because oftentimes that kind of has a little disconnect from the sports science to the actual field. So getting them used to doing that. And then the last thing would be like a coach contact thing, just trying to get them to meet other people. It's always awkward to do those cold calls or whatever, but as we all know, it's the more people you know in this field, the better chance you have of finding position. So while it might be awkward and uncomfortable, just trying to get people to reach out and at least have a conversation with somebody, whether it turns into something or not. You can always say, hey, I know this person, and we can always fall back on them, and they can form some sort of friendship or bond, and hopefully everything goes well from there. So I'm just trying to get them to kind of expand that network. I think that networking is also important, and it's hard to do. I'm not the best at it, and something I continually try to improve upon, and hopefully try to get my interns, to do better than I have done in the past, and I'm trying to work on.
Yeah, I love it. It sounds like a very holistic program. You've not got your pure strength conditioning and speed and agility based educational modules in there, but you've also got your, like you say, your professional development, understanding how to represent yourself well in some kind of professional setting, like an interview. And then the networking is massive. And it's a term that we like throw around all the time. And we say to these young coaches, you've got to network, develop your network, but it's much easier said than done. And I'm finding more and more, it's more challenging for these younger professionals coming through to have not necessarily the social skill sets, but the understanding of like, what is a professional way to reach out to a coach who's been in the field for 10, 15 years in order to try to set up some kind of informational interview or just to grab a coffee with them if you happen to be in the same city, or that they're visiting your staff, how you might be able to reach out to them after the fact, stuff like that. So that's great. And hey, I might apply to your program because I feel like I need help with programming. Every other week I'll wake up the morning after writing a program and just being like, what the hell was I thinking?
I do the same thing, so I don't know if I'm the right person to come to, but I can't take complete credit for that one. I have to give credit for the structure of my program to Coach Mal Bernard. I think she's working at a high school now, but I got to work with her at UCF, and I took a large kind of structure of the program from her and kind of tweaked it to kind of my own personal kind of needs in terms of what I need from internships at a smaller school. But no, she set most of that up, and I kind of stole a lot of it from her, so I can't take complete credit for her. So she did a really good job with that, and I just kind of molded it to fit Purdue Fort Wayne.
Yeah, love it. No, we all learn from our old mentors, and no, I think it's great. And hopefully, this platform with My Momentum Connect, as well as being a place for young coaches to find these opportunities, as much as anything, it's going to be a place for current internship coordinators to look at what everyone else is doing, see if there's some areas that we could do better. Maybe there's something that somebody does in their curriculum that we just thought, I've never thought of actually teaching on that. So hopefully that will be a resource for everyone as well. But that's great. So obviously this is a new role for you, Coach Rawle, and previously being at Wright State, you had a number of interns who surrounded you in your program there, who have probably moved on to these GA roles, developmental roles, or maybe landed assistant positions somewhere else. So if you could touch on a successful intern who you've had under your wing in the past, maybe talk a little bit about what they were like when they were with you and what kind of personal and professional characteristics you thought set them up for success when moving on to the next step.
Sure. I think my most successful intern that I've had the privilege to kind of help develop, man by the name of Adam Markley. This was when I was at Wright State. He is now a graduate assistant at Texas A&M Commerce. I was watching your video with Trevor over at Detroit Mercy, and I think he put it very well. I think the biggest thing was kind of that time that Adam spent with us, and I understand that interns, or especially the one here, is unpaid. Internships are unpaid oftentimes, and people have to go make ends meet. Like, I've done my fair share of unpaid internships, and I had jobs outside of that to just basically pay the rent. And so we try to be pretty flexible with how our interns kind of structure their schedules when they come to us. But he managed to be able to spend a decent amount of time. So our kind of baseline is 20 hours a week, but he was here pretty much, or in the weight room, pretty much 24 hours a day, it felt like sometimes. So he just was around. And I think the more time, even if you're not coaching and you're just watching, the more time you can see, that interaction between coach and athlete, or sitting in the office and potentially eavesdropping on a phone call between a strength coach and a head coach about how practice went or something like that. It kind of just gives you that insight into some of those other things that aren't taught in the books, that you will have to experience as a full-time or a graduate assistant when you're actually in charge of your own teams. So I think that's probably the biggest thing is the time commitment. But we also do understand that you have to do other things sometimes to be able to kind of make it work. So but the more time you can spend, the better. And the other thing I guess I like to say, and this goes for athletes and interns, is together, you can't teach effort. That has to be something that's intrinsic. I can take a not very skilled strength coach and make them good if they're willing to be good. That's the same thing with most of us strength coaches. We can take maybe not the strongest athlete or the quickest athlete, but we can make them quicker as if they're enthusiastic and they kind of adhere to the process. And so just the willingness and the curiosity to keep learning and developing, I think is by far the second biggest thing, other than the time commitment, that a young intern can kind of bring to our program. And I think that's definitely something that will help them both in an internship and in a full-time position to be a great strength coach. I think those are probably the big two things that I would say would kind of be the most impactful.
Absolutely. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And one thing you just said there reminded me of actually something that we've been harping on a lot with my women's lacrosse program here is we have this phrase that's kind of new for this semester, which is intent invested versus opportunity burned. And it's kind of like you have the opportunity in front of you all the time to be able to invest yourself and to become like deeply engaged in what you're doing. And if you do that, you're going to see benefit and reward come back your way tenfold all the time. And quite often I'll see young coaches who are very engaged within the first 4 to 6 weeks, but slowly over time, as they kind of get into the rhythm of things, their engagement starts to wane. They start to be a little bit less critical about what they're seeing and they're not asking quite as many questions. And so I agree, the best intern coaches I've ever had have never wavered from that. They've been consistently engaged all the time. They've had that growth mindset all the time. So absolutely, I'm glad that that Adam had that as well for you. So finally then, Coach, wrapping it up here, in terms of young coaches who might be looking to come to you guys in Fort Wayne to assist with your program and to learn under you and your current GA as well, what kinds of professional and personal characteristics might you be looking for? How would they mesh well with your staff there, your sport coaches and your student athletes?
That's a hard one, because I mean, a lot of people just say be a good person, but I think that varies depending on the coach and kind of what they consider to be a good person. Everybody gets along with everybody else a little differently. But I mean, I just think that as long as you're open and willing to learn, you know, I think that's the biggest thing. You know, it goes back to that intrinsic drive to be able to just come in and have some energy every morning and you know, put a smile on the athletes' faces when you come in and they're excited to see you. I think that's probably the biggest thing, you know. And you know, if you can get along with the staff, that's great. Obviously, we want you to fit in because we want you to be part of the staff. We want you to be part of our program as much as possible. So being able to get along is good. But I mean, I guess everybody's different and that everybody's got different temperaments and personalities. So you know, it's definitely not a one size fits all thing. But from my perspective, as long as you can kind of make a positive impact on an athlete's career at Purdue Fort Wayne and bring a smile to their face and bring some energy and some, you know, positive coaching. I think that's probably the biggest thing I'm looking for. Because once again, you know, you can take somebody that's not so skilled and be able to make them a better coach. But if they don't have that kind of that built-in intrinsic, I know I keep saying that, but that built-in drive and kind of energy, then I think that, you know, I don't think an intern would go very far without that. So
100%. Yeah. And the great thing about that is it doesn't take any level of intellectual understanding or a degree or a PhD to be able to have a positive impact on like an interpersonal level. Exactly. If you show up and you're positive and you're a kind of a value added kind of person, then you'll find that the learning comes as second nature and the growth comes with it, and those relationships can develop.
We should switch places, because I like that, the value added type of person. You said it better than I would ever be able to say that. I like that. Might have to steal it from you.
Well, it's yours. Yeah, you got it. Take it. Good stuff. Well, Coach, I couldn't thank you more for being part of this new initiative, and we're hoping that we'll be able to spread the message wide and loud about what you guys have got going on, and hopefully be able to send some aspiring coaches your way to assist with your athletes and obviously develop your tree as well of the mentees that you've had under your wing, which is great as part of this internship coordinator role that we all serve. That's one of the most rewarding things, to see young coaches go on and make an impact in the profession. So hopefully we can help you out with that. So obviously, if anyone's watching this video, whether it's on YouTube or on the My Momentum Connect webpage, all of the information about Purdue University Fort Wayne is below in terms of the key information about dates, durations, and deadlines. Also the curriculum in a bit more detail than was talked about today. And then down at the bottom of the page, you can find all the information about how to apply to Coach Rawle and his program. So Coach, thanks very much for spending time with us today, and we'll be in touch soon.
Well, thank you. It's a really cool initiative, and you know, honored to be a part of it. And if I can help kind of spread the word in any way, just let me know and I'll be happy to do it.
Fantastic. Hey, I appreciate you, Coach.
Thank you.
All right.